So good afternoon from Helsinki. My name is Kamila Sultanova. I'm a public speaker and workforce diversity consultant based in Helsinki, but I'm Uzbek originally, and I moved here 5 years ago, and I left Uzbekistan in 2002. And this is the first webinar series for promoting and showing Uzbekistan with a female voice. And I'm extremely happy to launch this idea, which was a long time in standing. And with me, I have two fantastic European Uzbek women who I will have this conversation for the next 40 minutes. So let me present you the first one, Malika Sharipova. She's a CSR and sustainability specialist based everywhere in Europe, and with her London-based consulting company, where she does research on CSR for Europe and Uzbekistan. Hi, Malika.
Hi, Camille. Nice to see you in here.
And super happy to have you. And the second compatriot I have is Zainab Muhammad Dost. She is the most exciting writing pen lady, which I will tell you why. Multilingual, independent researcher specializing in Central Asian affairs.
Editor for Uzanalytisk and Central Asian Analytical Network. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm super happy to have you as well.
Likewise. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So, well, this is the first webinar series. It's a test, but I wanted to kind of give a little intro to Uzbekistan for everyone who's listening. Uzbekistan is in Central Asia. It's a 32.8 million people nation. It is situated between Kazakhstan and Afghanistan, and very much now that we are from Uzbekistan, we're very much focused on what's happening last 3 years, where Uzbekistan is opening up. And I have some statistics, having a webinar series called Uzbekistan with a female voice is that we have obviously 51% women, if not more. And we have, if you look at different indexes, we are number 106 in Human Development Index. In doing business, we are 74th among 190 countries. We're looking at the population. We have 70% are young people under age 25, and we have 50.5 women are at work in comparison to 73.6% men. So there's a lot of work to do, and this is what I thought, just to hear and have a nice conversation of the deep-seated issues that really matters to all of us. So if I can start with Malika and Zainab, what is it to be a woman in Uzbekistan in 2019?
Yeah, well, 2019. Well, depends what kind of a woman you are. Depends if you're educated or not. Depends on what region you live within Uzbekistan. Depends on your social status, if we may say like that. Depends on the people, on your environment. So it really depends how you feel yourself as a woman. If you ask my personal opinion, like how I feel as a woman, it's a bit controversial, because with me, I feel empowered. I feel that I can do something, and I feel that I have the voice, but it's all because I have the right situations, I have the right family, let's say, I have the right education, or I have the right people around me, let's say. But I cannot say the same about all women in Uzbekistan, unfortunately, because we have like a different situation in here. We have traditions, we have let's say religious views, we have a situation in the country that needs some kind of fixing, that needs some kind of a change in order to give some power to women.
How long have you been away from Uzbekistan? When did you leave?
Well, I've studied in UK for a year. I've studied in France for a year. I've been living in Pakistan for 5.5 years. I've seen many, I traveled, I lived in many countries in Europe as well. So I may say I have really, really controversial experience when you compare like not the worst case, but in terms of women empowerment, the worst case, we can say Pakistan, right? I'm not saying that this country is bad, but in terms of the gender equality, right?
Okay.
And like the best case, one of the best cases, we may say France. Women are really, really empowered in there. They're really powerful, and they are very strong, opinionated women. So so I can compare, you know, having those both let's say very different views, yeah, with Uzbekistan. I think I can make the just opinion about what's happening in Uzbekistan and what's the situation with women in Uzbekistan.
Right. I will come back to you because I know that you are in Tashkent right now.
Yeah.
So I want to.
Right now I'm in Tashkent. Yeah.
Thanks. And Zainab, to you, what is your take on a woman in Uzbekistan today?
Sure. Well, I would say that I obviously haven't been in Uzbekistan for a while because I'm based in London now. But I do follow the news and I do research on the region because it's just my, you know, personal affection and to Uzbekistan in particular. So what I've noticed, obviously, and like everyone does, is that the average position of an Uzbek woman is rather controversial. It is the one of being all good on the paper. When it comes to law, we have it on the woman's side, but when it comes to practice, unfortunately, it's far from perfect because it means you have to basically you're contrasted. You have a contrast between the law, which is cool, with the reality, which is less than desired. And women do struggle, obviously, because they are often expected to act and behave in a certain way which is not necessarily what they would like to do if they had the freedom to. And this is something that obviously concerns all of us because we want our daughters, our relatives, and ourselves to be happy, yet we have to always fight and try and prove our position to others, saying that, well, actually, guys, we're also worthy and we can be educated and we should be educated, we should work, we should be happy, so that it will make you guys happy as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, what I think really unites us a lot of, I mean, I know at least 50 plus women across the world who are extremely powerful and really caring about Uzbekistan and inspiring in so many ways, becoming these, you know, the new generational role models, which is badly needed for our young boys and girls. And coming back, I still, you know, I work with youth engagement. I inspire young boys and girls to get their voice, and, you know, voice is power. And I see the same messages from them coming to me on my Telegram daily. First is that I'm not, you know, allowed to study, or my contract is too expensive, so my parents say quit. Then they wanted me to get married because the person, you know, the upcoming groom will pay for his or her education, which almost never happens, or often doesn't happen. And then there is a problem of, you know, being a professional wife. You know, we have these books being published, you know, what a Uzbek wife or girl should aspire to, you know, cooking, taking the classes to be a good nurse, so you have a nurse at home, you know, all these different ways to compromise your identity as a, you know, empowered, or let's say individual in 21st century, to compromise for a husband's job, compromise your dreams for another, you know, for the family. So there's a lot of things to really talk and say what can really empower and bring a new narrative of Uzbek, you know, younger generation, but also women now, that not to be disconnected from their own lives, right? So what I was thinking here, that why, what are the problems that we face in, you know, our culture, our traditions, you know, facing our modern times? What do you see reappearing?
Right. Well, I may start with the traditional views, right? Where the role of a girl, of a woman, let's say, is limited, as you say, by being a housewife, good daughter, good wife, good housewife, or being a good in-law, like daughter-in-law. Kilin, they say in Uzbekistan, right? As you said, in many books that are published for girls, we can see different opinions, or let's say teachings where they teach girls or women to be a good housewife or a wife, or a daughter, or and etc. But not grow as a person, as a personality, not guiding them to find their inner, let's say, maybe a talent, maybe some individual, you know,
potential to get their own potential,
yeah,
personal agency.
yeah.
Like,
Unfortunately, like when you look at the families, even the traditional Uzbek families, the boys are more preferred, unfortunately, than the girls, and more attention is given to boys, to the boys' education, so that the all, let's say, all not power, the all attention is given to the boys' education rather than the girls, because girls are considered, let's say, um, in Uzbek they say brownie hasma. It means like the girls are like they're giving, huh?
Somebody's property, or
yeah, some kind of, yeah, which is which is very, very insane.
Wrong.
Yeah, it's very
not even funny. It's wrong.
Yeah, the girls who are experiencing this, it's not funny. Yeah, of course.
Absurd. Of course, it's absurd. This is the book that I bought in February in Karshi, Kızlar Kitabı, so a girl's book, and it's all about, you know, compensating patriarchic view of what the woman should do, and to foster this, you know, the traditional view that, you know, there's, and it's really clashing with the state imposed, you know, gender equality, you know, developments and aspirations. So on the other hand, the other book is really interesting, is The New Woman in Uzbekistan, which is quite written by Marianne Kamp, Islam Modernity Unveiling Under Communism, which is a nice historical input. So where are we, how we got here with culturally, you know, imposed cultural revolution in the late 20s or early 30s, and how is that really giving us, is it giving us a stimulus today, or is it really like now we want to push back? What is your take, Zainab, on this? You know.
Sure. Well, going back to traditions, obviously we have to take into account that Uzbekistan is an example of a patriarchal society, right? So therefore, many traditions has got to do with that. Even the status of Kelin and, you know, her obvious subordinate position has got to do with that, because at the end of the day, it's about patriarchy and hierarchy in patriarchy. So if the man is the head of the family, then comes the senior woman, which is his mom, right? And then under her, and sorry, there's obviously the dad of the father of the husband, and basically the daughter-in-law is the less privileged member of the family, and it's all got to do with patriarchy. So and this is something that many people have been trying to change, and this is not news. It has been happening in Uzbekistan and Central Asia for a while. There's always a modernist wave, maybe not necessarily a very strong one, but which is trying to advocate equality and promotion of girls' rights and women's rights. But they are obviously fighting with a massive wall of misunderstanding from the society as a whole, which thinks that this has got to do with our identity and our values, which they think has got to do with the tradition to be preserved. All right. So and this is something that we will have to work on if we want to, by spreading the message and explaining how not necessarily all traditions may be necessarily constructive, or maybe even, you know, good. So that's one. And as for your question, Camille, you said, how do we move forward, right? That's a very philosophical question, and there are obviously many ways and many ideas about it. One of them is obviously, it's being put in practice as well by many active females in Uzbekistan and abroad. It's about men engage. So they try to get the men on our side, trying to make them talk about it. This is obviously a good thing, because patriarchy is about men. So if males do understand that we actually all benefit when girls are empowered, that's definitely a good thing. There's a bit of controversy there as well, because last year, I don't know, guys, if you remember, there was a UNICEF video which had a few prominent men speaking about girls' rights and the need to empower girls. And then there was a bit of a criticism from independent researchers and human rights activists and journalists saying, oh, how come it's men talking about it, right? Like, we're talking about girls' rights, how come it's men again? So it's like a thin line between men engage and protecting women, again, protecting, or men engaging and helping women to get where they want to be, right? So I think it's a very controversial one. We're not here obviously to say this is right or wrong, but I'm just saying that we're still at the stage where we still need mentors and protectors in order to be empowered. And this is obviously showing the stage of the development. And it would be nice one day not to have the need in male voices in order to protect ourselves. We need to have the voices of females which are enough, and where we will not need to have, two guys and when there's two girls, so that to make an statement objective. This has got to do with tradition. It may have to partially be maybe it's related to religion as well, if you can remember, when the witnesses of 4 women is equal to a witness of of evidence by 1 man, right? So we obviously have to work with that, because we're not living in the 7th or 8th century anymore. And hopefully it's going to change by very, very thorough campaign in the media, on TV, hopefully with state support, but also public support.
I mean, I actually liked that campaign last year, because I know that there is hasn't been so much support from men at all, right? I mean, even I phrased my own story when I did a TED talk. I was writing my speech, and it's, talking about how I left I left Uzbekistan because I didn't feel I belong in my own society, that there's no space for me to be with the dark skin. I need to have white skin. I had too big nose, and I had too much smiling face, persona to fit for the modest Uzbek girl. And then I was like, that narrative, I was allowed to study. Think about that. Allowed, that means it's my human right after all, right? If you think about this, and if you read different ways of, what is a personal agency in these different like empowerment mechanisms of young people, that it's still in a way for the Uzbek tradition not to clash too much with modernity. It may be, for me, I thought it was a nice wave to bring fathers and brothers that actually show a good example for other men who otherwise don't allow their wives to work, that don't allow their wives to study, or even like their daughters. Actually, you can see during last 10 years that the higher education, there's less women graduating from higher education, where if you take it 2011, there was 44% women graduating from Hayes higher education institutions, and in 2017 it dropped to 35%. And it's coming back to what Malika said, that it's better to educate boys than girls, but how we go about this, it's not just about education, but also creating jobs. And I personally see how my empowerment really followed up into myself with my economic empowerment. When I started making my own money back when I was a student, it was the most liberating thing, not to say to my parents, I decide my own life, but really to have your own choices and recognize, hey, I can change my life as I want, because I'm making my own money, I pay my own bills, right? And how do you think that could be, if to channel the good energy which there is, which is happening now? Or do you think there is that channel of good energy with the new gender equality law? There's fight for investment campaigns. What do you think is now going to happen?
There's definitely an element of more freedom of speech, if I may say it, after the change of government in Uzbekistan. So it's a good thing for sure, because people do speak up, and we hear many voices talking about the problem and talking about the issues like domestic violence. 2 laws have been passed. One is against domestic violence, and the other one is to strengthen the equality of men and women. Yeah. It did not go without some debates and even objections to it, saying how come we need women to be equal to men. Some people saw it as a bad thing, because they all see it as something bad for them. Until now, we think that, well, we think, when I say Uzbek society thinks that feminism is bad, you know, and then feminists actually have to explain, actually feminists are not bad. We're not against women, against men. We're pro-woman and we're pro-men. So we're still at this stage here, but with the more open media and more discourse happening, I think there's a bit of more awareness now. However, we need to always distinguish between the capital city, which is Tashkent and its surroundings, and other towns and rural areas. That's like, there is a massive contrast between these two, right? And what's happening in Tashkent, what may be changing in Tashkent may not be necessarily reflecting exactly in the exactly same way in the rural areas, but majority of our population lives in the rural areas, and they may not have Facebook, they may not have internet, and they are often unaware of the things happening, and the tradition just keeps recreating itself. That's why the task would be obviously to write as much as possible in Uzbek, talk about it as much as possible in Uzbek, and hopefully we're also going to do that at some point, and just spread the message. But I see that there is a movement there, and there's some dynamics, and I think it's more positive than negative. It may be a bit slow, that I cannot, deny, because we're in the 21st century now, guys, but we're still talking about some things which are already, a reality in countries like Sweden or Finland, right? But we're getting there a bit slowly, but hopefully we'll speed it up.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Malika?
I want to start by the economic independency, as you mentioned, Camilla. You said, economic independence gave you some kind of a power, right? Yeah. So, and I also think this is the key for women empowerment, because as soon as women feels that she's independent of everyone, as soon as she knows that she can sustain herself. I mean, in Uzbekistan, not only in Uzbekistan, overall, but especially in Uzbekistan. And after that, she can have some power, I think, because I always say, what is the problem within, if you look into the traditional Uzbek family, why, for example, daughter-in-laws are tolerating everything, like domestic violence, or let's say, that all that obedience or need to have some permission before doing something, right? Because they're not independent, like economically independent. They're dependent on their husbands, they're dependent on their parents, and that's why they feel like they don't have the voice, or they feel like they cannot go anywhere else. They have to tolerate all of that. That's why I always say, in order to give some power to women, they need to learn how to sustain themselves, first of all. And all the girls, I always say that we need to raise girls with the feeling that they have to develop themselves as a person, as an individual, and they need to know that they have to develop in order to be able to sustain themselves, first of all, and to be independent of anyone, right? And unfortunately, in the regions, as Zainab mentioned, the situation is a bit different. I may say worse than in Tashkent, because in Tashkent we have more modern youth, and they start, like, when you look at the youth, like young people, you can see that they think differently now, which is good, right? They start, like, when you look at the girls, even they start thinking about their career, they start thinking about earning for the living, and etc. But in regions, the situation is very, very different. They still are, like, women are considered as, let's say, housekeepers, right? They're not given the voice even. They're not given the voice, or they're raised to be obedient.
Or they work, you're right, Malika, but in very low paid agriculture jobs, or maybe they do some social work as well, but unfortunately they're all very, very poorly paid, and that obviously explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a pay difference as well. Like Zainab said, women are paid less than men. Sometimes for the same job, even, right? Uh, and even in Tashkent, in the capital, say, I may say that when it comes to the career, when it comes to the, for example, giving the position, men are more preferred than women, unfortunately. Well, maybe I cannot generalize, of course, but from my own experience, I saw that, I experienced that, so that's why I can say from my own experience.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, that, I mean, there's two clashes. One with the modernity and traditions. Two is that we're growing in a, you know, living in a very highly technological, you know, digital age. We are all on telegrams. We are on Instagram, Facebook. I mean, again, those who are privileged or have an access to a mobile phone. And I noticed two things. That one is that still traditionally, if you're born a girl, you are born to be guilty, and you'll have that guilt feeling, you know, I'm so sorry I'm here, you know, you speak fast to kind of, you know, let the others listen to a story. I mean, this whole idea of shame and uyat is the most cancer of our social society. I don't know, you can disagree or agree, but I hate this word. And I'm trying with every workshop, with every webinar, to get uyat out of the girls' and boys' minds, because it's a pest. And in Kazakhstan, I think that civil society is much further on to like calling out on these uyat men. It's like, right, sign up with this.
Yeah.
That
uyat men. We also have our own.
Yeah.
But Camille, you know, as far as traditions, you know, for example, we cannot say that all traditions are bad, because we have good traditions. Yeah, like yeah, uyat is. I also don't like this word, but it's a bit radicalized, right? In a good sense, maybe like let's say like respect for elders, right? Actually, this is very good notion, because we have to respect our elders, we have to look after our elders, but it shouldn't be very radical. Because why it's like it's considered negative, because it's a bit over the edge, let's say. It's stretched out, because when you say respect for elders, they say sometimes they say you cannot even express your own opinion. This is even considered as not respecting elders, which is bad. So that's what I'm saying. Some traditions actually, like initially they're good, but they're like over.
They overdo it. They overdo it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we need to promote respect and dignity between different intergenerational relations, right? Between elderly and young, between you know, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and the same with father-in-law. But like, there is an issue with dignity and respect, and even like simple thing as eye contact, right? How many times you walk into a restaurant or a cafe and they will not even look to your eyes, because they will look to the eyes of your husband and or a male guardian. So I think that it's, you know, there is this lady, a scholar and a TEDx speaker from Nigeria, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She says we should all be feminist, and she talks and says that we need to dream and plan for this new, you know, hope that, okay, we can be angry and hopeful, that we have ability to like remake ourselves for the better. So I think this could be nice conversation to start these webinars and say, how can we become better? How can we redefine and come to terms with our new identity, new Uzbek men and women, new population, I mean, new consciousness, being a global player now that we are open to the world. Can you name, either of you name some of the good and maybe less good initiatives that are going on now?
You know, from the government side, there are some attempts to improve the situation, like they passed the law on gender equality, right? We have the women committee. But unfortunately, with this committee, we have some I may say issues because there were some cases where the head of this committee was giving out let's say, wrong opinions. Like, for example, the last case was about the women in markets, in bazaars. They want to educate women in market by, it's absurd, but by, for example, letting them listen the old poems or old novels.
Yeah.
They need a bit different approach. It's they don't look at the root cause. This is the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like surface, like smoothing the surface, but not dealing with the root cause.
What do you say?
Exactly.
Line up. You mentioned
It's got to do with the same concept of shame, which you already mentioned, and they do in fact care about how people look, how do they sound, what's about appearance, and what will people say. That's the key preoccupation of many traditionalists in Uzbekistan. I may say women are even sometimes worse than men in this respect, because the conscious, what will people say, oh my god, what will my neighbor say, it's like you know, everywhere, and that rules obviously the behavior and the norms. And that's why even if the law says something, but then the state committee of women, which is supposed to protect women's rights, will come up with an absurd statement saying the singers should dress in an appropriate manner. They should not wear red dresses. They should not be open or whatever, which is ridiculous, absolutely, because that lady, the singer, she was not even stripping. I mean, it was just a nice red dress, but she got lots and lots of hate and criticism because of that. Obviously, people did speak up as well. We do have media, and there were many voices saying, you know, that's just ridiculous. What does state committee do? But they still do this, and that body itself needs a major reform. It is supposed to change. It will when it changes its techniques and tactics and the mindset, and hopefully hire a good communication manager, it's gonna work out.
Okay. I mean, there is also that list of 23.
Oh,
That's another one. That's why I say a good communication manager, because what that did, or what they did, oh my god. It's in a nutshell, for the audience, there was a list of categories of women which were considered to be potentially dangerous and prompt and have a propensity for crime, and somehow that list included divorced women, single mothers, teenage girls, women who were poor, women who were suicidal, and basically you could just say it's about all women, because everybody could relate to it at some point. And then they came with an excuse saying, oh, it was just, you know, a mistake, it was not translated properly, but the bomb just dropped, and it caused a major outcry in the social media of Uzbekistan, both in Uzbek language and Russian language. Everybody was just fuming, saying, what on earth is going on? And then they said it wasn't me. So
yeah, she said she wasn't. Yeah, she
said it wasn't her. Yes, she immediately said it wasn't her. But
yeah, but the good thing that came out of this is, like, a lot of my contacts, they started this campaign which is like, if you remember, in the US it was nasty, I'm nasty campaign. So we had potentially dangerous campaigns.
Yeah.
We could all share our posts. So in that sense, I feel like, okay, well, that was kind of disservice, but it made us a service to kind of wake up and stand up for our rights. And so I believe with this kind of webinar series that we can kind of, you know, demystify what is happening in our country, share our love and patriotic feeling that we want growth, we want development, we want, you know, this whole identity and empowerment for all of us as a nation. And also a lot of young people write to me who already study abroad. So we need to kind of stay together and see, can we offer these webinar series and podcasts. And I encourage everyone to start their own podcast in Uzbek, in Russian, where you really talk about issues that matter to you, because that starts with a story. You go through this really psychological experience. That's my also suggestion. But again, when I do that, the girls say, on Telegram, I write a boy's name, because they call out on girls on the social media. This, you know, catcalling, shaming, it continues online, and we really need to promote this, education of, gender, of course, awareness, but just basic education of critical thinking, of creativity, working with each other, and actually believing that there's a friendship between boys and girls, which is really not happening. So we're finishing up soon, but this being a call for action, what would be your extended, suggestion? What would you like, people to focus on? How would you welcome, global community or Uzbek international diaspora to engage? Because I do believe that the things we powerful women do abroad, Uzbek women do abroad, is potential. It's amazing. It's huge, and we should also be heard and get these initiatives going. But I want to hear also from you, because I know you have a big stake in what's going on in Uzbekistan.
From my side, I would say that we need to talk about it more. It needs to, people need to hear about it more and more on TV, on like this kind of podcasts, or on the public media, or et cetera, et cetera. We need to talk about it more. We need to educate people and raise awareness. Otherwise, especially, I don't know how to do it, but in regions, women need to listen this kind of things more and more. And from my own opinion, it needs to, like, we need to start from the family, from ourselves as well. Like, as a generation who are raising their children already, the young generation, right? We need to instill that values to the girls and to the boys as well. To the boys, they need to learn how to respect women, how to treat them equal. For the girls, they also need to know that they're worthy of everything, of the good, of everything good, and they need to see themselves equal to boys as well.
But can you tell a few words about your channel? How are you promoting, the CSR awareness to Uzbek companies and things?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do, to raise awareness on responsibility, let's say, because it's not just about corporate social responsibility, it's about responsibility overall. I started this Telegram channel in order to raise awareness among Uzbek-speaking population and Russian-speaking, and I'm talking about different issues. It's like, it's corporate issues. It's about gender equality. It's about social issues, and etc. etc. So that
also, right?
Yeah, like it's about responsibility. So responsibility is in everything, right? We need to feel our responsibility for our children, for their education, for their upbringing, environment, society, and etc. and etc. So, hopefully, it's like my little share to to give back something to my society, to my nation. Yeah.
And if you had a little bit, let's say you're talking to potential investors or sponsors, what would you ask them to your engagement?
Yeah, depends what kind of investor is it. It is, because unfortunately, a lot of investors who are coming in Uzbekistan, they're either from China or Russia or Turkey. We have very less from Europe because there are many issues. It needs different podcasts, I think. So I would ask them to require, again, responsibility.
Yeah,
from your side,
Malik, from you, if you say you want investors for boosting your impact, because you're doing a lot of social impact with even just raising awareness, what could there be small steps to enhance the CSR awareness in Uzbekistan?
As I said, once investors start demanding or requiring responsibility from the companies that they want to invest, then companies will start thinking about their environmental responsibilities, their social responsibilities, and etc. Because right now, unfortunately, business in Uzbekistan, they think about only how to make a profit. And I can say the same about not majority, but many investors as well.
Okay.
They're not thinking about their responsibilities, and they're not fulfilling. Yeah.
Thank you. Zainab?
Yeah, I second what Malika said about spreading the message, and it's got to do with an effective communication strategy that has to be on many levels. It can be on state level, but also on a public and civil society level. It has to be systemic, and it has to be in not only Russian but in Uzbek as well, and predominantly in Uzbek, I would say, because the majority of Uzbekistan is Uzbek speaking. And the fact that we can boast about a few activists who are very active in Tashkent, but they're mainly operating in Russian language, doesn't do service to Uzbek speaking population, right? So we need to obviously put in print many materials speaking about what gender equality means, what rights mean, why domestic violence is bad, and what is domestic violence. So I think we're actually on the right track by adopting the law, which actually classifies the types of domestic violence. It's not just beating; it can be financial, it can be emotional, right? It can be any sexual domestic violence. So once we're there and we start talking about it, things will start changing, hopefully, slowly but surely. I would prefer it to be not slow, of course. I'm impatient by nature. That's why probably I was not very. I didn't really fit in either, Camila. Hence, this explains why we're all in Europe. But anyway, so but I do. I'm an optimist, and I hope that this is a positive development, and hopefully, with the activism of females like ourselves and many more, there are lots of promising females in Uzbekistan and abroad amongst the diaspora who are probably quite keen. And if we find a way to organize it on a systemic level, like, I don't know, issue a series of articles for resources, independent media, once we come with our own input and a communication strategy, things could probably change. And another thing is, why I emphasize it should be in Uzbek and also indigenous in a way, because there's still this a bad perception about the West coming and hijacking our values. It's obviously not necessarily a right assumption, but it's still there, right? And to fight a stereotype, you need information. And I would also suggest we could probably look back at the poems again and novels of our own writers and intellectuals who were there in the beginning of the 20th century. This was the part of the modernist, the Jadids, who were actually talking about women issues back then. They were saying we need to empower women, we need to change that. So if we start putting that in the context and actually spreading it and saying it, guys, it's not coming to us from someone in the West. It's actually our own as well, because this is in our own interest. And this is what's needed for the society to develop. Then hopefully it will start resonating with people who will then perceive it in a different way. They will see that it's in their interest, as opposed to being, oh no, we need to change this because the West says so, for example.
Yeah, it's bringing back the dignity to our own cultural heritage and history. Abdullah Qadari's novel Utkan Kunlar, which is also actually being translated already twice. There's one already published and one coming up. Well, what have we learned today is that we're not going to focus so much on education. It's like deserve a separate chapter, but we know that illiterate mothers will lead to illiterate children. So to promote these values of Uzbekistan, being righteous, being entrepreneurial, being kind, have compassion, and love the music. We have great humor. We really need to kind of step up our game on really promoting equality, and not just from the state level, but to have great law enforcement mechanisms to recognize that, hey, it's like Uzbek Lazgi dance. Can you imagine a Lazgi dance without a man or a woman? That's our narrative. Let Lazgi, that way go through all, levels of society, and we have her vertical equality, horizontal, representation, because we have so many men living, working abroad, because, there's so many women and men and elderly dependent on breadwinners, and we could just increase quality of life by recognizing opportunities that women have also in the job market, which is happening in the big cities. But again, rural, I come in from Karshi, it's really different, scenarios, what a woman can do still today. So we're closing up now, and what I want to say is, big thanks for this first of a series discussion, Uzbekistan with a Female Voice. We want to grow a global conscious awareness that we are here. Central Asian women make up almost 70 plus million. I mean, the whole Central Asia is 70 plus million, so half of them being women. This should also be part of this whole equality discussion on the global arena, and that we can continue these talks. I do encourage you to share it and also, of course, join the discussion and get in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Camila, for organizing.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Camila and Malika.
Thank you. And I want to say that your gender or your origin is not an obstacle to live a full life. And I hope that we can extend message to all our brothers and sisters. Thank you and take care.
Well said. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Akli bilda tutar yüreğim çirtmegine